And now enjoy this free Jason Modcast show.
The World of Mythbits.
Hey everybody, welcome to the World of Mythbits podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Barty, and this is our Member of the Month episode. And I am here with guest co-host
David K. Montoya.
He's new. And our guest of honor, Clayton Barton. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? It's good to be here. I'm fantastic. I'm doing well. Got my coffee ready to go, ready to roll with you guys. It's an honor to actually be able to talk with you guys.
Now, just so our listeners know, there is some time shifting going on here. Where I am, it is 8:48 Sunday night. Where Dave is, what time is it there, Dave?
It's 5:48.
Sunday,
5:48 Sunday.
And Clayton?
And I'm 11:48 a.m. on a Monday. So, I'm Marty McFly right now. Back to the future.
So, I just want to first take a moment and congratulate you on your Member of the Month win for your amazing picture. I was just blown away, called Transform, and that was in issue 65. Can you tell us a little bit about what inspired you to create that piece?
Well, that piece was, and by the way, thank you for actually nominating me as Member of the Month. That's a real honor. That piece, Transform, was created a long time ago, in fact, many, many years ago, and it was for a zine that I was working on at the time with a bunch of friends, and I believe that zine was called Just to Annoy You, and basically it would just have a bunch of random stuff in it, interesting little stories from other people who had sent in work, obviously lots of art, and I think that they used that particular one as the cover for that zine. So, really it was only a little black and white zine. Do you guys know what a zine is?
Oh, yes.
Yep. So it's just, A4 folded over, not a whole lot of room to work. But, in Melbourne here in Australia, they're fairly popular, actually. There's actually a store dedicated to them, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But yeah, that's really what... And the theme of that zine was called Transform. So I essentially just came up with a visual for that was inspired by the theme. And yeah, I like to draw, beautiful girls with lots of kind of details. So that's why she's surrounded by the alien-like structures within that image. And I thought, the contrast is just really beautiful with that one.
Yeah, to me, she's almost like she's breaking out of those barriers that are around her. And that was the impression that I got from it. And I'm looking at it again, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Like she's just been born from the alien-like structures.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I don't think about it, actually. I just kind of go with the flow and try to come up with something that looks cool and make up a story after the fact, oftentimes.
So you don't usually draw inspiration from anything? Like, does anything that you see around you inspire you in your artwork, or do you just kind of sit down and have a thought and go from there?
I definitely have themes that inspire me. So typically I love sci-fi and horror and, sometimes dark fantasy and that kind of stuff. So that's usually my go-to when it comes to coming up with something on a creative endeavor. But on top of that, I'll also seek out inspiration from various reference materials and subject matter that I've gathered over the years. So I have a giant folder just full of tons of inspirational references. I'm a big fan of 90s comic books, so a lot of my characters look like they're from that era. Even the rendering style, the line work, it's all derived from that time because I had a lot of artists back then that really influenced me and inspired me to pursue my art in the first place. So they're my inspirations. And I think that I used to really rely on them to help me come up with something creative a while ago, back in the day. But now, now that I've kind of got the reins and I've learned as much as I've learned through experience, I'm okay to go out on my own. I take up the training wheels and I see what I can come up with, because all of that subject matter has kind of infused with my own creative mind. So I can draw upon it a little bit easier now, and to more of an extent, you could say. And really, the only time I'll use references is to fill out the details. But the general idea is oftentimes just, come up with that on my own. It's already there a lot of the time, and that's why I need to draw it out.
Yeah. You just have to get it out of your head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I know the feeling. So you've had this particular picture published in a zine, and now it's been on the World of Myth. Have you enjoyed publications elsewhere? Like, have you been published other places?
No, I haven't. I haven't typically been published by any of the big comic book companies out there, mostly because
I see Dave grinning.
Except with, of course, David's Sergeant Iron comic, which really is. I was lucky that he invited me on to do that. It's beautiful. I love it.
He's been bouncing in his chair waiting to pull that out.
I have.
That's so cool. So cool. I remember doing the cover for that as well, and it was a really fun project to work on. The character was super cool, and he had this entire backstory. At the time, I guess I was very young, and I remember I was very busy with uni as well, so I kind of bit off more than I could chew, I think. But that's what made it a much more wholesome experience, I think, because when you think about the comic book industry and the kind of deadlines you've got to stick to, I mean, heck, they're even worse. I recently talked to another artist named Vince Rodriguez, and he said that he had to do this comic book story for Xenoscope, and it was a 30-page comic or something like that within 22 days. So he essentially had to do 2 pages a day to get it done, which he obviously didn't end up doing, because it was just, especially if you haven't really experienced that before and you're thrown into the deep end, it can be a real shock, I think. But besides Dave's Sergeant Iron, which was super fun to work on back in the day and taught me a lot, I haven't really, maybe even getting a taste of that, I didn't really go for the other publishers because I didn't really want to draw Spider-Man, and I didn't really want to draw the Hulk and even Batman and stuff. I wanted to draw my own characters. So the way that I figured it was that one day I would create my own comic book studio, tell my own stories with my own characters. And the way that I figured I would do that was by first creating another side business that would teach people how to draw comics. And that's where howtodrawcomics.net came from. Because I was a teacher at the time, and I started teaching. So when I met Dave, I was still going to uni, but the year after I graduated, I started teaching at that same one in video games design, and that was in character concepting and environment concepting. And that was really cool, and I really got a lot of satisfaction out of being able to pass on my skills to other people and to see them level up their own abilities. Now, that was super cool. That wasn't just working in a studio anymore to produce something that would be later consumed for entertainment. But that was actually, I felt like it was using my skill set in a bit more of a rewarding way than that. I was kind of giving back, essentially.
Yeah.
And so of course, How to Draw Comics was inevitably going to come about, especially because I started looking into internet marketing and figuring out how I could financially sustain all the ambitions that I had. And I have a lot of ambitions. There's tons of things I want to do in life. Even more so than comics. I want to make movies one day. I want to make action figures, all the geeky stuff, basically. I want to tick off my bucket list.
Yeah.
And so I kind of focused on my own thing and built that up while teaching on the side. And that was really convenient because I could kind of pick my own hours for that and it allowed me time in the day to continue chipping away at that larger goal that I had inside.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Okay, go ahead, Dave.
What do you find more rewarding? I mean, creating your own work or teaching? I mean, I know it's two different avenues, but what do you feel is most rewarding?
Yeah, they're both rewarding in different ways. So teaching is great because it's much more less about me and more about those I'm teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a sense of community in that way. You're part of this tribe, and you're the leader of the tribe, and you're able to do the best that you can for them and impact them in a positive way. Whereas actually drawing comic books, it's almost like, for me, it feels like a much more selfish endeavor, but in a good way, because, I'm sitting there and I am just immersed in my own creativity. Like, I'm indulging in it. And to be honest, when there are times when that's all that I want to do. I'm working on all this educational content, figuring out why I do things the way I do them, breaking it down in a very, analytical manner. And that kind of sucks for your creativity in a sense, because once the demonstration is done, then you've got to analyze it all.
Right.
And there's no more pressing time that I experience than that, when I really feel like I just want to throw it all away and work on my own comic book and escape to my man cave and not come out for months, right? And the positive thing is, though, is that all this time the teaching has, as I said, allowed me to analyze the way that I work. And because of that, I've become a much better artist. So I've really had to look at my abilities on an extremely deep level. And I've had to make sure that when I'm demonstrating what I'm doing and I'm breaking it down to other people, that it's done so in a way that they can actually take on board, and it's done in the correct way. So I had to make sure of that, right? So now when I do go to create an illustration just for fun, or I do a small sequential here or there just to make sure that I can still do it, right? It's way easier than it would have otherwise have been, because I know exactly what the method is going to be and the kind of techniques that I'm going to use for that.
Mm-hmm. So now you've mentioned you like to draw dark fantasy, horror, things like that. Do you have a particular genre that is your absolute favorite that you just love to dive into, and that's your go-to?
Yeah, it's really interesting that you bring that up, because I draw a lot of sci-fi, but I think my real love is horror. Like and I say that because every time I'm having a movie night on the weekend with my friends, the first category that I go to is horror or thriller. I love the movie monsters like Freddy and Jason, Michael Myers, and all those ones. I love The Thing, which is kind of like a sci-fi monster movie. So I love the creatures, right?
And the old one, like the Blob, and what was that creature from the Black Lagoon?
Yep, exactly like that, right?
Yeah,
and I love those. Sci-fi is, for some reason though, I always end up drawing sci-fi stuff, and I think that's because I really like telling the story of a character, and I feel like I don't get to really do that as much, or at least it's not as much of a focus in horror than it is in a sci-fi. Sci-fi, you have to really figure out exactly where everyone fits into the world, how they're all connected. And in horror, it's kind of like there's a monster and it's scaring the crap out of everybody. And that's about all there is to it, right?
Yeah.
You can build off of that and make it a bit more, have a bit more depth than that, of course. But that's really the guts of it, I think.
Yeah. Well, with sci-fi, too, you have to create a world that is beyond this world but believable.
Yeah, totally. You think about a series like Star Wars, or any other one, and I guess the same could be said about fantasy. Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones. You're creating this entire world, and just the vastness of it all has to be articulated to the nth degree. And I mean, as a writer, there's a lot that you can play with there, a lot of expansion that you can create. And I think really in the end, creating stories within that world becomes a lot easier because of just the sheer amount of content matter that you've got to use there.
Yeah. You have to remember to be consistent, though.
You have to be consistent. You got to get rid of those plot holes, or at least figure out a way to work around them.
Yeah, because the people will come back on you.
Exactly.
So when you're not being this fantastic artist, when you're not being a teacher, what do you like to do in your free time?
Well, I pretty much just mentioned it, actually. I really love catching up with my buddies and watching some great movies because I find them inspirational, and I like to think that even when I'm relaxing, I'm somehow being productive in a creative way. So in my mind, I'm going, well, I can hit a few birds with one stone here, right? I can watch and I can bond with my mates over some movies, some shared experiences. But at the same time, I can also really study that feature, that film, and ask myself, what am I liking about it? What's working to me that I could use in a potential future story that I might create someday? One of my favorite things to do is literally note down on my phone pieces of dialogue that stand out to me. Dialogue that just really hits home. There was one I was watching Supernatural or something the other day, and there was this one line where one of the guys they said, in this business, you either get dead or you get dead faster. And I thought that was really cool. And I actually noted that down. I'm like, that'd be a really cool name for a comic book story. Dead Fast. Right.
Oh, yeah. But that's a series that's really good for picking out just story ideas. And I'm a huge Supernatural fan. Huge.
Me too. What season are you up there?
I'm on the current season, but I haven't watched the current episode, so no spoilers.
Okay, no worries. I'm probably a season behind you.
Okay, so I won't give you any spoilers.
Yeah, please don't.
Just be prepared.
I haven't seen an episode.
I'll brace myself.
Oh, Dave, you need to watch it.
I'll put it on my list.
Supernatural. When I go to watch movies, it's thrillers, anything paranormal, anything. I'm not the slasher gore kind of movie person.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more of the psychological thriller. I want something to make me jump. I want something that's going to make me, when I'm going upstairs to bed and I've turned off all the lights and the dark is chasing me up the stairs, I want to run down the hall. Not because I'm afraid, Freddy's going to get me, but because something's creeped me out.
It's disturbing in some way.
Yes.
Yeah. One of my favorite movies like that was the Mothman Prophecies. I thought that was a really cool movie. With
Richard Gere was in that.
Yeah.
That I've actually, after I watched that movie, I did a lot of research online into that legend, and that's...
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
That's kind of...
I think that was during my unsober days. I don't remember that.
For once, you're odd man out.
I am.
So what are your favorite themes and inspirations, Dave? If you don't mind me asking, because I assume you still write a little bit here and there.
Actually, I've started writing a lot this year. I've written a lot since like the old days.
That's cool, man. Love that.
What are my inspirations? That's a good question. The old idea of what if is where a lot of my stuff comes from.
Okay.
Like, there's a. Do you go to the World of Myth or no? I mean, have you been following it?
Not too much.
Okay.
Not too much.
I won't hold it against them.
I know. Honestly, because I know that Dark Myth Comics ended up becoming closed down.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Was there an end to that at some point?
I actually got a cease and desist order from Manga Entertainment because they held the rights to Dark Myth, and they literally beat my application for Dark Myth by months. So now I have to lease the name Dark Myth. That's how it's back.
Right.
But yeah,
I
for a
see.
long time, I stopped publishing for 5 years.
Okay, yeah. And see, I think that's why I was always a little bit, what's Dave up to these days? Like, I was a little bit unsure about what direction you'd headed in, and I guess, we kind of always kept in touch every now and then, like once in a blue moon. That was
Intermittently.
cool, but yeah, intermittently, it's awesome when you can keep in touch with the people that you've worked with for that amount of time. I think, and here we are now having a podcast together. Basically.
Yes.
It's amazing.
What do you prefer as a medium? Do you prefer the digital medium or the old-fashioned pencil to paper?
Ooh, good one.
See, I can ask artistic
That's a
questions
really-
too.
That's a super
Go.
good question. I think for me, what I prefer these days is digital, just because it's so easy and convenient to use. I don't really have to worry about buying art supplies in any way, shape, or form. So that means paper and pencils and fine tip pens, which is what I always kind of think that I would have been using had I stuck with the traditional way of working.
Mm-hmm.
But when I switched to digital, it did take some time to get used to and to get comfortable with. I had to learn how to create cool-looking pencils, slick-looking inks, and the coloring. I always figured that I had no choice but to do that digitally. I knew that they colored their stuff digitally, and I knew that they used these, cut and grad techniques in Photoshop that I'd have to learn if I wanted to get my work looking the way that theirs did.
Yeah, you wanted
so
to
they
stay
were very
competitive.
Yeah, exactly. And they were very much. It was less about being competitive and just more about being able to do cool stuff like they were doing. Because I was a kid at the time, and I was just in awe at their abilities and what they were able to produce. So yeah, when I went digital, I had to learn all that stuff, and after a while, I just got so used to it that I pretty much became more comfortable working digitally than working traditionally in a weird way.
Yeah, yeah.
However, the other day, I did jump into my sketchbook with an good old-fashioned ballpoint pen, and I realized, hey, you know what? I can actually still do this stuff traditionally. If I'm ever at a Comic-Con or something like that and someone wants a commission, I can still pull it off. Because I was a little bit nervous.
I've watched, I'm a writer.
Yep.
My grandfather was a painter. My mom, and he would sketch. My mom can sketch and she can paint. My aunt can sketch and she can paint. I can't draw a stick figure. Stick figures, forget it. And I would always kind of get down like, they can create all these beautiful pieces, and I'm over here, typing away on my computer. And my grandfather said something to me that he says, I draw pictures with words. Now, I've watched a digital artist, and I have to look at what I'm doing. And I've seen them with the pad and the pen, and they're looking at the screen up here, and their hand is over here drawing, and they're looking. Yeah. How do you do that?
Yeah,
that whole hand, it just amazes me.
That is the weirdest part about it, is the hand-eye coordination shift that you have to make. And it feels like there's a very big disconnect there initially, and I think that's what throws a lot of artists off about going digitally, is they have one try at it. It feels super ultra awkward for them, and it just leaves a bad taste in their mouth. So they decide to throw away with the digital and keep on doing traditional. But if you can keep on going with it for a few weeks at least, it doesn't take a whole lot to just get used to it. It's initially that discomfort that you feel, I think, which is the worst part. But discomfort only happens because you're not quite used to it just yet.
Yeah.
So you just got to give yourself that time.
So kind of like driving a stick shift.
Totally.
Eventually, the clutch and the gas, you don't even think about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny because I'm 28, and I still do them a lot. I love public transport and being driven around by other people because, actually, I mean, I can drive, but
not legally.
not legally. Just I'm on my learners, so I can kind of drive legally, but I have to have someone in the car with me. But that's more for financial reasons and stuff. I just don't need a car. I work from home all the time, so yeah.
Hey, my husband's approaching 50, and he's never had his license ever.
He's
Could
been
be due
stubborn
to
like
the
me,
fact
though.
that I'm the one that has to be in control, but No,
Totally.
he likes to walk everywhere. He likes to look at the scenery. He's big into herbal medicines and wild crafting and harvesting from the wild. So if he's driving, he's not seeing any of that.
Totally.
If I'm driving, then he can go, "Hey, pull over," because he sees something.
I have 3
Absolutely,
kids.
yeah.
I'm stuck at driving.
Yeah. So Dave, do you think you'll get back into comics at some point?
I'm actually actively working on it right now.
That's cool, man. That's fantastic.
There's
Funny you should ask.
Reviving the myth legend, the dark myth legend. You'll probably have to call it something else now, right?
no, I'm leasing the name Dark Myth.
Cool.
I pay.
Oh, from them.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But I was 13 when I came up with that name, so it just didn't feel right, and that was kind of the reason why everything kind of shut down, is because we were forced to change it, and we became MythWorks, and though it sounded all nice and corporate-y, it wasn't what I created, and I got forget it. Started Jazomon, went into podcasting, and then after all that's happened in the past, now I'm back, and I'm like, it's kind of like breaking up with an old lover, and then you're like, meet up in the past or in the future, you're like, oh yeah, I remember why I like you. That's kind of how it is.
That's cool, man.
And I'm knee deep in it, and
Yeah, you are.
I stayed up until 3:00 this morning going through looking at possible artwork for the World of Myth 2019 calendars, which,
cool.
I won't say, but I will, will be, hopefully, fingers crossed, be out in December. So yeah, I'm back in it.
Right. That's good, man.
Now, what about you? You are actively making comic books again, yes?
Actively making comic books. Not quite. I'm still working on the courses for howtodrawcomics.net.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm actually working on one that I want to come out in December as well. And that's basically teaches people how to draw and design superheroines. So through the entire process.
He draws amazing women.
Yeah.
I know. I've been through his portfolio online.
Oh, thank you.
I was cyber stalking you.
Awesome. Always happy to be cyber stalked. Yeah. So the plan is, Dave, is that I want to get out the superheroines course, the superheroes course next year, and then a course that basically takes people through the process of creating 3 consecutive sequentials, and that'll be full-colored sequentials and everything. And then after that, I'd like to jump into my own comic book projects. I might still put out a course here and then, maybe on covers or, other kind of villains and brutes. I'd love to do that because I find it fun, right?
Absolutely.
But I was thinking some of those characters I could maybe use for a comic book project. And at that point, I'm hoping that it'll be a financially viable option, or at least it'll be able to be sustained financially.
Now, will you go print or will you go digital?
It'll be primarily digital, just because unless I hit the jackpot and I'm able to afford hard copy prints, then it's just not going to be possible, unfortunately. Maybe I could find a publisher or something like that, and that would work. And I'm sure there are options out there as well. I might do a few, paperbacks for the conventions and whatnot. But I do feel that I can definitely market digitally. I just don't think digital comic books have had the opportunity to really be sold or marketed in a way that works just yet. And I think there's a lot of potential there that you could go with. For example, alternative intros and endings, alternative plot lines. Of course, that's building off of the alternative covers and whatnot. But there's a lot of cool stuff that you could do with it.
That's actually a neat idea that I did not even think about. Almost like pick your story kind of thing.
Totally, yeah.
I love those kinds of books as a kid. You'd read a bit and then I would say, okay, if you want to do this, turn to this page. If you want to think you should do this, turn to this page. And you could read the same book 3 times and have 3 different adventures through the book.
Totally. And it wouldn't change the plot in a significant way. You'd just have, say one version of issue 2 that at the end there would be maybe an additional page that showed a slightly different angle of the character that maybe gave you a clue into what issue 3 was going to be about. But it'd be different and unique and a limited edition, which is what would give the digital platform value, because you could say, well, there's only going to be 100 copies of this particular digital edition ever sold, and that's what would allow you to, because that's the thing, digital loses value because it's not really tangible.
Right.
There's nothing you can hold in your hand. And so, but it's a new technology, and so it's just a matter of figuring out ways that you can make it valuable again, I think. We're still catching up with this stuff.
Yeah.
I was actually one of those type of people that thought, because I grew up, I've been collecting comics since 1987 and, physical comic books. And I never thought, when I heard about the digital press and comicology.com and all this, I kind of blushed, it'll go away. Kind of like how I felt about ebooks. And I'm first to say, when I'm wrong, I was wrong. And in fact, my library on Comicology is vast. We're talking probably about 2,000 books.
Wow. Digital and traditional, what they share in common is the most important parts of what makes a comic great, which is the story and the characters. Right?
Yes.
And the only difference is that you're able to hold it in your hands when it's a hard copy. But here's the thing. That deteriorates, okay, over time. It deteriorates. It can get damaged. It can get lost or stolen. If you've got it digitally on your Comixology store, it's never going to fade in quality.
Nope.
It'll always be there in maximum resolution, and you can access it wherever you are, right?
Yes.
It's just super cool.
You could be, knee deep in the mud and say, I feel like reading a comic book. Pull out your phone and start,
Totally.
I'm in quicksand. I've got a few hours. If I stop moving, I'll just read.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Show your. Imagine how cool it would be if someone created a platform like Comixology, where you could trade comics or something like that, or
that would be amazing.
Show your friends. It'd be super cool, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what I mean. There's a lot of options out there, I think, and it's funny because there's already been established ways of doing this stuff that we try to take digital, but you have to be somewhat of a pioneer, I think, to really evolve the process of bringing digital comics to the masses in a bigger way. Because comic book stores, sadly, are going out of fashion. They're closing down a lot, which sucks big time. And it's because they're just too expensive to run, too expensive to produce as hard copies. Which is why I think in the future, digital is going to really take over, whether that's for the better or the worst.
Well, I already see it happening in schools here in California. My son's senior in high school, and he, instead of them giving books out, he has the little Google tablets. What are they called? Do you know what they're called? I can't think of what they're called, but they're tablets, and it's got all of the books on this one tablet. So when he has to do homework and read through math, he just pulls out his tablet, find a math book and read it right there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's the cool thing about it as well, is that you can just flip through a comic book on your tablet these days. And even my brother Corey. So my brother Corey does comic books at the moment. He's probably done way more comic book than I've ever done. And he does them all on this tablet, and it looks great. Like, the colors are so vibrant and nice. And again, like I said, the resolution is there, so you get all the details and quality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, anyway, that's my spiel on digital comics. I think that there's a lot of advantages to them, and probably when I do bring out a comic book series, Dave, it will be digitally, but there'll be a lot of little quirks to it that make it fun. Like, I think about how Steam. Do you guys know what Steam is? It's a gaming platform.
I have
Yes,
it. Yeah.
my husband's on there. He
PC.
plays World of Warcraft, and so does my son.
Yeah.
So well acquainted with Steam.
Totally. And what
Old people play video
that
games
platform
too.
did- yeah. What that platform did was it replaced video games in stores and buying them from stores as on CDs and DVDs and stuff, and it made it so that it was all accessible digitally.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
later on, that became extremely convenient for people. And that what they have, that's like, I like looking at what they bring out, because they bring out really interesting stuff to make the experience of collecting those games even more fun, right? So they'll allow you to collect cards, for example, in these video games, or like new skins for the characters, or
Mhm.
add-ons. They'll give you add-ons, right? So imagine if you could do that for digital comics.
That would be
That'd be
yeah.
super cool. Like,
Change the
Hey,
costume
like
of the
this comic.
character would that would be cool.
Like little Easter eggs in the comics.
totally. Like, maybe you can get the comic, and as a bonus, you can get the character bio booklet as well. Something cool like that just sounds exciting to me.
Yeah.
That is. Now I know that I'm the guest guy here, I've been asking a lot of questions.
I'm out of
you're the
questions,
guest
Dave.
host.
Carry on.
So,
Okay,
And
well,
you own the podcast.
because this is where I'm at. There's not too many people that I can actually sit and talk about comic books, drawing, the business, as far as comic book wise. Where is your stance, especially being in Australia, the corporate takeover of the main companies? Like Disney owns Marvel, Warner Brothers owns DC, and it's more of a corporate machine now than the actual comic books that we grew up with. And I'm just kind of curious to see what your take is on that.
yeah, I think it is an interesting time that we live in the comic book industry. And honestly, I think that when I look at it, I see them making a lot of mistakes that could potentially bite them in the bottom later on in the future. And one of those being that, as you said, Dave, it is essentially a corporate machine. Disney saw that Marvel had a huge property in Marvel, and that they could create content and entertainment around that for decades to come, right? All the characters that are in that universe and the amount of the following behind them is huge. And so they bought that, and it was going to be a money-making machine, and it is. But as a result, the heart and the love and the quality isn't quite there anymore. And if you look at and I don't know if this is just my comic book stores that I go to, maybe I'm just having a bad run, but I'll look in the comic books there, and yeah, the covers are always flashy and awesome. They're digitally painted, realistic, and they look fantastic. But then you open up the book, and it's like, I don't know, the quality of the artwork
It's
just
flat.
seems. And I hate to toot my own horn here. Like, I'm not saying I'm the best artist in the world, but I do feel like a lot of the art in those books, from the big two, well, actually, DC is probably doing a better job art quality wise, but Marvel specifically, it's like some of the artwork is just totally like lame and amateur looking, and I don't know
I totally
why,
agree.
right? Like, they
To
should
me,
have the budget.
It looks like they've done it as quickly as they possibly could to get it out on the shelves as fast as they possibly could to get the money in to get the next one out.
Totally.
And
And if you combine that with the fact that they're trying to make comics more realistic to reality, so they're trying to make a man and a woman more realistic, for example, and I guess in a sense create a stronger connection of relativity so you can relate to them better. But the thing is they forgot that comics were never about that. The reason that they're so attractive, at least in the superhero genre, is because these characters are bigger than life, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're supposed to look like gods and goddesses with divine superpowers, but instead they just look. Superman just looks like, he's maybe a little bit more muscly than me these days.
Yeah, he hits the gym maybe twice, maybe 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So here's the part 2 to this question. Okay, so we both agree that it's become a corporate machine, and it's the fact that they do produce poor quality content. But on the upside to that, swings the door wide open for indies to produce good quality, to say, here we are, take a look at our stuff.
Absolutely. If you hadn't have said that, I would have jumped in and said it as well, because it's 100% true. The thing with indies is there's much more passion behind them. We're not really that motivated by money, because if we wanted money, there'd be way easier things we could do to get it. And so I think that what's going to happen in the future is, because we're able to skip the middleman now and publish our comic books online tomorrow for nothing, literally no upfront cost, right? All we need is time. We create the cool-looking comic book with the epic-looking art. We put it on Gumroad or something like that, and then we market it online. And if we have a following, that's a little bit easier. But, heck, Facebook ads aren't that expensive in comparison to traditional advertising. So, you could totally, put some money behind that. Just target Comixology's audience. You can do that with Facebook these days. And get some eyes on the work. And here's the thing. Anyone who loves reading comic books, they love it because it's a visual medium. So if the visuals in your comic look fantastic, then they're going to be it'll be like moths to the light, right? You're going to be automatically attracted to it. It's going to capture their attention. And if enough independent guys start doing that, then I think, and gals, if enough independents start doing that, I think that you'll see a huge shift, actually, between commercial comics and independent comics. And I think that independents may not ever necessarily 100% take over, because Disney is a conglomerate, but I think that they will become more and more popular, and there will be a much greater shift in the future.
Well, go ahead.
I've noticed in the indie group itself, be it movie, be it book, music, comics, just even in the last 5 years, there has been a shift where there is a whole lot more of different types of medium within the indie category that is coming out. There's more and more people that are going that route over a commercial route. We have film festivals all over Ontario in the summer devoted to the indie film. We have music festivals devoted to the indie artist. So I think that whole movement is growing by leaps and bounds. Yeah. So
it's an exciting time, and indies have no limitations either. So they can create some really original stuff that is going to be different to anything you're going to see from those major two. Yeah. What were you going to say, Dave?
Oh, pretty much just that it's even though it's I'm trying to get my bound, because I can hear the kids fighting in the background.
You don't hear glass breaking, they're fine.
Yeah. But no, I was going to say is that even though it kind of depends on who you talk to, because there's like a lot of, you have naysayers and everything, in every genre, every medium, they're like, because of like you said, Disney being a conglomerate and just because of their deep pockets, they're pushing out, and I know this for a fact, that, they're, say, you own a comic book company and you order maybe 50, X-Men comics. And because they're part of Disney, they have the deep pockets. Instead of getting 50, you get 150. And when they print out their monthly reports, it says, oh, we sold 150 units to this particular store, and overall it looks like, we're doing really well. But I was going to say counter to that is that even though they're producing, they're not being sold, they're not being read, they're being returned. As where the last time I looked, and when did I start working on Darker Myth? I think that was in March. And it looks like, compared to like when we first met, and I was doing the math, I met you 10 years ago, so you were 18 when I met you.
Yep.
And compared 10 years in one decade, the readership of independent comics has gone up, I think, like 32% in the last decade. And if you look at it in generalized profit shares and market share, that's huge.
Yeah, that is massive.
You know what I think may have done it? Have you heard of the game Magic the Gathering, the card game?
Yep.
Where they all go and comic book stores are hosting board game nights because my son, right from as soon as he discovered the game, I think he was like 12 or 13, we have a local comic book store called Nerdvana.
Nice.
And
I like that place.
the kids needed a place to gather to play this game. So the comic book store, every Saturday night, there would be a bunch of prepubescent teens in there, tables all set up, and they would have tournaments and they would play. Well, bringing the kids in. Well, when they're not playing, they're browsing the comic books. They're discovering all of those old favorites. They're discovering all of those new favorites. And that comic book store, he's 27 now, my oldest, and he still goes. Every Saturday night, off he goes to the store. And he's in there playing with kids that are 13, 14 years old that are coming into the game and discovering comic books and the whole genre all over again. So
that's super cool. I love that. And it'd be really great to see more opportunities like that for people to become more involved, especially newcomers to comic books, just to really get into the zone. Nerdvana is a great way to describe it, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great title. I wish I had it.
Totally.
Sorry, it's taken.
Yeah, I do like what you were saying though, David. I think that's 100% true. Yeah, wait, what were you saying? I remember it was good, and I agreed with it.
The readership has increased by 32%.
Yeah, 32%.
Independent
That's
readers.
Amazing. That's huge.
And because of Amazon, the reach of independent authors, like novelists, have even gone past that. I don't remember the number, but I remember it was higher than 32. And it's because there's more outlet for the independents, independent creators, to not only create the material, but to put it out there and to be circulated with the main stuff. And if it's looking better than the main stuff, if you're going to have a Papa John's, and I know I'll probably have to bleep that out so I don't get sued, but if you have a Papa John's pizza that looks kind of crappy and freezer burnt for $20, and then you have Joe Blow's pizza for $15 and it looks fresh, which one are you going to get? You're going to get the nice one.
Yeah.
Despite the name brand, you're going to get what looks the best. Yeah. And that's kind of what's happening in the market.
I'm a poor author. I never go name brand.
Totally. We all feel the same way. Don't worry. We're all on the same boat.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's funny because a lot of people will argue, well, it's really hard for independent comics to get their characters out there because they don't have the same following as Spider-Man or Wolverine or Batman and Superman. But the funny thing is I think it started to work against them having such a large brand because, and this is just something that I heard in the comic industry news recently, which was that one of the reasons new readers feel so intimidated to pick up a comic book is because a character like Superman just has so many issues behind it that they feel they need to read before they can get into it. But even more than that is to read issue, say, 600 of Superman and to actually understand what's going on, you also need to read like issue 200 of Wonder Woman and then issue 300 of Batman or whatever, right? Because they're all kind of interconnected. And it's, of course, to get readers into books that they wouldn't have otherwise have checked out. But it does exclude a lot of people who are only just getting into comic books, a lot of newcomers, right? There you go. There you go. And including me. Like, I don't actually collect that many comic books, but the ones I do love collecting are kind of like the miniseries. Like, I really love Mark Silvestri's Hunter Killer because that was like maybe 6 books or so.
He's an amazing
or
artist.
6 issues. And I had the whole story there. And it wasn't... And that's how I think that I'll create my comics. It'll be like 6-issue series, boom, done with that character. Maybe later on there's like some kind of crossover, special edition issue. But if you keep it small in that way, here's the cool thing. Your audience isn't going to collect like every 1,000 copies of, or every 1,000 issues of your superhero, but they will collect the 6 of them.
Yes.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Or a one-shot.
I kind of felt overwhelmed when I went into the Avengers. Because I'm not a DC, I'm not a Marvel, I'm not. So I was going to sit down, and I mentioned to my usual co-host, Mike, and to Dave, that I was going to watch one of the Avengers movies. And I ended up, well, no, you have to start at this one. Well, no, you should see this one first. But you have to watch that one before you watch this one. By the time the 2 of them were finished, I had a list of 12 movies I needed to watch before I could watch the one that I was going to sit down to watch.
15, so technically.
I totally get the whole intimidation. You know, I'm just not going to bother. I'm just going to go over here and watch something else.
But see, that's the beauty about digital comic platform, though. Yeah. Because with the digital platform, you can go find those issues. You can pay 99 cents for... I mean, it doesn't matter where you're at in the world. 99 cents is not that much.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
And I think that's another big part of digital platform. I'm trying to keep myself from geeking out. I'm like right there.
Geek away, Dave. Geek away.
If there's a time to geek out, it's now.
Yeah, I don't really geek that much. Not anymore. People are like, act your age. You're old. No, okay.
Okay,
I
talk to you and Mike every day. You two geek out constantly.
That's great.
Okay, here's a question for you. Going back to you specifically. What are you working on? Anything at the moment? Any type of artwork or pinup? What are you working on?
Yeah, right. So I'm not working on any comic books, and I'm really looking forward to actually sitting down one day and spending a month doing research, and by research I mean watching movies, trying to get ideas, and reading other comic books, because there's a lot out there that I just love and inspires me. Like, I've got a list of comic book names actually that I've just brainstormed and listed down when I think they might sound good. I'll read a few of them out for you because they're pretty funny actually. One of them's called Radcore Ultra X.
Ooh.
Demon Deathcon.
Ooh, I like that one.
I like that.
Gridlock. And yeah, that's all I've got really there. But it's just I think about this stuff all the time and about the cool comic that I'm going to create one day. But I know that I want to see how to draw comics through to the end, at least to a point where I can call it a done day and step away from it a little bit, or at least not have to have it so much upkeep. And the great thing is I have gained a following through how to draw comics because of the community and the people who check out the educational content. So it's super cool. And many of them are like, "Where's your comic book? Like, we want to see it. Why are you doing comics?"
I've been saying that for years.
Totally. And, there is offers that come through to work on comic book projects, and it sucks to have to say, I find it super hard to say no. So I've really had to push myself to do that. But, but at the moment I'm working on the heroines course, superheroines course, and I'm I'm scripting every single second of that out. So it's a demonstration, shows you how to create 3 different superheroines, each with unique attributes. So it goes through the process of rendering chrome materials and leather, and how to render the hair of the character and that kind of thing. Light hair, dark hair, medium colored hair.
And where can you find this at?
So you'll be able to find it at howtodrawcomics.net. December 10 is the scheduled release. Hopefully it'll be December 10 because I'm notoriously terrible at keeping deadlines. But the other cool little thing on the side of that course is I thought it'd be really cool to create kind of like a special little bonus thing that I'm throwing in there just for fun, which is essentially it's kind of like a small sketchbook of superheroines.
Awesome. Right?
And that's to keep me sane while I do the scripting, because I'm just writing all the at the moment. But yeah, I thought that'd be cool. I'm going to throw in a bunch of workshops as well that actually take people step by step through the coloring in more detail, and through the inking and overview of Manga Studio, that kind of thing. But it's pretty much consuming my entire attention at the moment. And I wish I could tell you more, but I'm a pretty boring dude. I do the same thing every day.
No, it's not. It's not boring at all. It really is not. It's not. It's, you know what? And I'm going to give you kudos, because one of your best assets, other than the fact that you're an amazing artist, is you are one of the most patient people I know. Because I'm the type of person, and you both can attest to this. I have an idea. I want it finished by tomorrow. I don't care if it's a 3-month project. I want it finished by tomorrow, and I want it chop. But for you, you've slowly taken your time, and you're still taking your time. And I know that you can hear it in your voice, the passion and desire that you really want to sink your teeth into your own universe, your own world. But you're being patient.
Yeah.
And it's like the old adage of walk or crawl before you walk, and that's my hat's off to you, my friend.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate that. There have been times when I felt a little bit burnt out, especially when I backtracked on a course that I've spent months on and realized it wasn't going to work out, or whatever. And How to Draw Comics has been going for someone said 6 years, but I think it's only 4 or 5 years at this point. And it's only now kind of getting to a place where I'm hoping to get it up and running as a proper business that stands on its own 2 legs, and one that doesn't require another job to keep it going. I'd love to open up mentoring and stuff like that through the actual website. I think that's the next step. I'll take on maybe 3 students for 3 months and really help them get their skills to a real upgraded level. But that's all future plans, and I try to hold back on skipping from one thing to the next before I've completed the current one.
Yes.
And it's funny, Dave, because you're not the first person to say that I have an extreme amount of patience, and I'm super thankful for that, because I know that it'll be definitely the key to actually seeing this through to the end. And when I jump onto my comic books, I'm going to need patience for that. I'm going to have to sit down every day at the desk, work on those comic books until they're done. And I'm going to have a billion ideas coming at me every single day of new things that I can do. So I've got to resist them.
Well, you've come a long ways as an 18-year-old kid out of Tasmania. That's who I met. You've come a long ways.
Yeah. Totally, man. That's where I was. I mean, you've known me. All the friends I have currently are friends that I've known for less time than I've known you, which is pretty crazy.
It is.
For the most part, anyway. Yeah.
And originally, I remember the original conversation, because I approached you as a business offer, and it just kind of turned into a friendship. So that I'm fortunate on that behalf.
Yeah, totally. It was super cool, and like I said, the work that we did do on Sergeant Ein together, it was super fun at the time, and it taught me a lot. I love the character. I thought he was cool, and hey, man, who knows? Like, what'll happen in the future? Maybe one day we could revive him somehow, but even at least in a small way,
I have
Anniversary edition.
I was gonna say I already have thick plots for like
Really
tons of.
So you've done a few issues,
just
for
writing,
him?
nothing artwork wise, but yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, other than the Yot Gnome, he's my one of my favorite characters. So I have tons of stories for him.
That's awesome, man. Well, you know what? It's good to hear that you're back in the comic game, and the future is looking bright for us, man. The other correlation I was going to say is, what happened in the '90s with Image. One of the reasons they were so successful is because they took the entire industry to a whole new level, art-wise, and obliterating everything else that was out there. So,
yes,
hopefully, we're going to do the same thing. And we're going to have, most importantly, what attracts readers to comics in the first place, which is the love and passion behind them, right?
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. Is when you're not motivated by greed and money, it takes it to a whole new level.
Totally.
Comic book fans are ferocious and dedicated. They're dedicated.
They absolutely are.
Where can people find you if they were to go and cyberstalk you like I did?
Well, anyone who wants to track me down can find me on Facebook, of course. It's Clayton Barton. We have a Facebook group for How to Draw Comics called How to Draw Comics. It'll be the first one that pops up in the search bar. It's almost at 30,000 members right now, which I never thought it would get to, but
Wow.
It's super amazing. It's a very engaged group who post incredible, mind-blowing artwork every single day. And the cool thing is that if you're a new artist just starting out, they're going to give you help, and they're going to give you support to help you get your skills to that next level that you're looking for. There's the Facebook page for How to Draw Comics, which is the same thing, just How to Draw Comics. Make it real easy for people,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, of course, you can visit the site, as I said before, howtodrawcomics.net. And if you'd like comic art tips, tricks, and tutorials, or you want to find out about new and upcoming courses and stuff, you can subscribe to the emailing list, which is just, a super convenient way for us to keep in touch and let you know about new stuff that's happening with the site and the content that's coming out for it. But that's pretty much it. Personal portfolio is just ClaytonBartonArtist.com, and that's all I've got to give you.
Well, thank you so much for being with us today, tonight, tomorrow, Clayton.
That's all correct, technically.
Very well.
Yes, it was. It's today, tonight, tomorrow. And congratulations again on your Member of the Month win for issue 65, Transform. It was an incredible piece of artwork, and I look forward to seeing more of your pieces in the world of myth.
Great. Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
All right. You have a good evening.
No worries. I will. Thanks so much, guys. I really appreciate that. Thanks for having me on.
Take care.
Okay.
And take care.
Bye.
All right. See you later.
Okay.
Holy crap. That has to have been the longest podcast.
He's a giver. He did really well.
That was incredible. We didn't have to. He just kept, he really filled in a lot. That was good.
Yes.
I didn't mind sitting here listening to him talk either.
See what you missed, Mike?
Yeah. Oh, that was good.
It was.
Thank you for listening to The World of Myth Bits. You can find us at The World of Myth Bits on Facebook, at TWOMB on Twitter. You can find me at Lupa B on Twitter, or Stephanie Barty on Facebook. And you can find Dave. Where can we find you?
Let's see. You can find me Facebook at David K. Montoya. Oh, any medium, it's David K. Montoya. I have that trademark. So whether it be Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram, it's David K. Montoya, and that's all you want from me.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in again for another week, and we will talk to you again later. See ya.
Bye.
The world of Myth Bits.